Greetings. I am your host today for Artist in the Berkshires. I'm Krista Jan Ryan, and I bring to you the artist whose vision has made an impact in the art world. Today, folks, is going to be our literary show, and I have two extremely talented people. One who actually leads a writers group for the youth in our community in North Adams, and another one gentleman who also has written books, has written a play, and continues to write poetry. My first guest is Jacob Snow, and he will be followed by Nathan Smith. So folks, I hope you enjoy the show. So one of the things that we are able to do, which is such an extraordinary experience, is we actually are able to work out into the community with the youth. And I know that Joanne Halbert has an incredible ability to get into the school systems and be able to work with a lot of the youth and some of the programs that NBCTC has worked with in many of the high schools here. But one of the greatest opportunities my husband and myself have had has been, we've been great followers of what comes out of MCLA. And we had this extraordinary experience one night. One of the young girls that was in this teen writers club, or teen writing workshop, she said, "Hey, why don't you come down? We're at Gallery 51 and we're doing a whole workshop." And I said, okay. It was a real cold night, and I asked my husband if he wanted to go, and he said, well, why not? Let's go. So we actually had our cameras from another show, and we grabbed it, and we came down. And I have to tell you, it was an amazing experience that we got to hear I thought, some of the most prolific, extraordinary, in-depth, emotional work that I've ever heard among our youth. And one of the experiences that I got to see was a gentleman whose name is Jacob Snow. He came on, and my husband and I, we were blown away by your work. And I mean, it's left a lasting impression in my mind, how extraordinary your work is, and the things that you delve into, and the way you and delve into them. And I feel so honored that we are representing the youth today. We do have another youth writer who's coming on, but I think it's so important as a community that we honor the youth and that we explore what they're doing, because it keeps us all connected. And it gives us a good idea of what their struggles are. I heard a lot of what was going on with what the struggles are with a lot of the writers, and the fact that they were able to encapsulate and express. And I think I'm a big writer, but I also feel that one of the #1 things that's so important with writing is it gives you the opportunity to express yourself and what you're going through. And I know, and how long have you been writing?
Probably since I was about 9.
9. Well, I don't know how old you are, but you don't look too old.
I won't tell. The kids might be watching, and we got a joke. They've never guessed the right age, so.
Oh, I'd have to say 22.
Pretty far off.
Pretty far off. Okay, so what do I know?
The students there are given an opportunity to express themselves in ways that they deem necessary and without any restrictions as far as language and subject matter, which all too often in their daily life they have restrictions on. So their voice is truly unfettered in the sense that they can say whatever they need to say. And from that we get some of the best artwork I've ever witnessed. If I had to say who my favorite poets were, it would be the students in my class.
Wow, yeah. And the gentleman, is he still the, what was his name that was leading the workshop?
Adam.
Adam Tobin.
Adam, unfortunately, is going to pursue other things this year, but he's left a lasting impression, and he's been a great mentor for the students that we have.
So the group is still going?
Absolutely. It's been going strong for 13 years.
Yeah. And it's not only opened up to college students, you open it up to other students in the community?
Every high school is welcome to send anybody who'd like to be there.
Okay, so how
from
does
the age of 13
okay, so how
to...
does a student who wants to get involved with your writers group get involved?
It's a beautiful thing. They show up.
They show up,
All you
okay?
have to do is show up. Everyone's welcome. No one's
Okay,
shunned
where
away.
is it?
It's on Main Street
And
in
it's
North
Gallery
Adams.
51, or?
It's right next door.
Okay, and
65.
how often do you meet?
Oh, we meet once a week, Tuesdays between 5 and 7. Sometimes the time changes year to year, but other than that, same place, same time,
Wow,
same day.
that's very consistent. It's amazing.
We try for some kind of consistency and structure.
Yeah, well, as a writer, you really need to be,
Absolutely.
right? It's all
Absolutely.
about how to keep your focus.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So we are NBC TC TV station. We are representing right now the literary hour of this marathon. And you are going to hear Jacob Snow. Do you want a mic or no?
Microphone. So when I started performing on stage, I was so nervous that I'd scream, and so I stopped using a microphone shortly after that, and I'd move it off the stage, be as loud as I needed to be. This first poem is called How to Save a Life, and it's a poem I wrote for my students in Teen Writing Workshop, and it's a bright, beautiful day in the mid of May with a phenomenal setting to paint. Posture aligned with hands intertwining, wind mares and crying, a glade forgotten by many. Meditating on a year of growth and life, even on the coldest of winter wilds, we built pyres out of a garbage pile, and their smoke signals sit here with me, converting dandelions into adults. The summer snow only remains still without my breath, but this isn't about me, it's about them. The courageous ranks of white seeds embracing their own strength, heart, and mortality, their own confusion. We made room in a given space. We made smiles appear on frozen faces with separation of age, race, gender. All the walls that could tear down individuality we rendered useless. They sent authority to its grave toothless, taking on the journey to self early with a worthy structure, their own. This is their poem, and they are the bravest group of kids I've ever had the pleasure to write with. Anybody can do it, but they lived it. In our hour and a half, we died and we laughed, we built and collapsed, we dined with the diabolical, we forced the divine to hide in the rafters, we convinced mind to be universally seen, we shared rhymes devoid of any schemes. Their shine glistens in a simple grin of confidence. How I'll miss them until it snows again. And isn't this what we want for our children? Dancing on a breeze of opportunity, still too light to plant. When life becomes a smoldering enclosure, writing is our oxygen mask. Sight is only guidance if you could truly feel. So to all those who didn't know, this place is real. To some, chicken soup for the soul had the right show but wrong goals. You can't trade diamonds for coal. You can't trade heart for marketing schemes. You can't trade young kids' dreams and their muffled screams for money. First kisses, first dances, first love and lost chances, and all of that passionate teenage angst that created so much of all of our adolescence, often shaping the adulthood bared like leaf grain and hardwood. Trust, valor, fun. This immaculate Quaker gun is just to ease tension when we really fire off, when we choose to scream through our rooms of cost, knowing all true debt can't be measured in color, when we become exquisitely direct. Truthfully, I owe these kids my blood for showing me how to save a life, and thankfully, the paper is my veins and this pen is my knife. The war for peace shall never end, but never die, like all of those heroes in it. I'm proud to be part of their coalition and carry their spirits. I probably wrote that about 7 years ago. Great, amazing group of students. Every year we have a larger and larger number of kids who need to express themselves. And we're happy and privileged to give them the opportunity to do so. So if there's anybody in the area between the ages of 13 and 19 that would like a place to workshop their work, be with students of the like mind, or just express themselves, we're inviting people in. One thing we started doing 3-4 years ago is I'll teach a performance while the story group will do in-depth story analysis. And so for them and to that end, I'm trying my very best to perform today. I'm very nervous in front of a camera, and I'm very loud. But this one is called To Crash a Slam. I wrote it, it's too long to win a competition. and I successfully lost the competition with it. Too obnoxious, too loud was a voice I heard calling me from a stack of books. Only one author yelled, but they all seemed to agree that there was something wrong with the way that I read. So I made amends. I gave up learning them. Rather, I put them on hiatus so I could make up this internal meter that would neither fight nor flee for myself. So I said to them, think what you would please. If it would please you to think that's a warm-up, what's up, how you doing, wink. I can talk in slang or accents if I want. I can convert rainbow yarn from a cough. I can dazzle fireworks illusion with a jar of fireflies. And I know nothing that can outshine rhyme. So I do it with words, the same ones, but moved into this Mad Lib scribble kid's defining muse that talking to yourself can still leave you confused, accompanied with an understanding of the tide that roller coaster, fall and rise. Wisdom should fit a filter like this. All that walks, legs or not, is that which talks. So all that I see is a poet like me. Thus all can be inspiring, for better or for worse. Worse is leaving a gift to write as a curse. Worse is not trying harder from wherever you are right now. Worse, we cannot do. If your feet are bound and your lips are too, then you become the nothing that would find you in your sleep. You may be stuck in a rut or a job, but nothing. Excuse me, nothing can stop this poetry mob with our pedigree slam sticker to the chest, the drum heat from tongue beat, feeding malnourished breasts of mother's neglection, and putting wildfire men past more than their pride, and sending a clear message in 150 languages so nobody can say that they didn't hear. Everybody get out of your chair, the revolution is right here, and poets. Yeah, all of you poets, yes, everybody in attendance, the poets, the ones that know the pain that no one else could, save for the strange occurrence of the few who do, their soul-skipping elevators and elevators out the window and through a march right next to you. We're a fortified castle, walking arm's length of saddle on everyone's back, because sometimes everybody in this place is a step, picking up the love we've broken and stuffed in the dirt. Truly, we work out and on what hurts. Through the stomp and the bloodstream, we are the ultimate team and will never be outdone. It's the march of the poets to save the world, the road to real gold that we've unfurled. And I mean before we had paper backing it up, before bloodshed was spent on its coin and laid in the ground, darkness enveloped, the only smell it could obtain was the earth after it rained. Petrichor and the vocabulary slain the ground, but not the night, that's me. I'm a shadow dweller willing to continue down a taboo concept and make it my whole portfolio's rep. So in the end I can say I tried, much rather I did it. This life is so worth living, but changing as well. You gotta work from the bottom up. And a man named Saul once said, the darkness is not to be equated with ignorance, but the unknown and the mysteries of the unseen, like dreams, like any one of you that wouldn't stand up here to read with me, like this lonely hand running the one-man band of broken instruments to different events, trying to ease and enlist, tightening your fingers into a fist is the first step for any group such as this. But damn it, you cannot forget the swing. I used to throw it up in the air with a Gandhi-like defiance. Now I know that it takes a beast to tame lions. That's why my eyes refract an Oedipus Rex complex bluff to get the whole crowd riled up. But don't let it slip your attention that because I don't know you, that makes you a shadow dweller too. So I'll start. I did by reading this, but let's exchange a breath pattern game so tomorrow there can be at least one more poet on the streets I can try. And I can teach, but we need to spread widely. And my age isn't far enough behind me to be considered wise or sage, so in these shadows I will remain with twisted anthems and terrible endings. Yet blind I would have to be to say you didn't just get a little inspired by me, and if not, please come slap the cocky out of my talk, because that's my butterfly effect. Because if you didn't like me, you'll probably give the next warrior you see twice as much respect. Heaven bent when I said this poem had to have a 5-minute end. What are you doing, Jake? You can't win a competition that way. That's right, because sometimes you win, and on your own terms you can smile when you lose. I'd give you the pants off my butt, the shirt off my back, and the shoes if it would make you move, but in jest, I gotta thank the clock keeper, the poster poet cherry teacher, and this crowd for being allowed to do what I do. And if you're bitter, even in the slightest, remember, I got a couple hundred more pages right here for you. Awkward silence. I'm sorry, I'm not used to reading to a camera. I'm going to probably keep looking around as if there's a bunch of people in here, so I'm more comfortable with a crowd, I guess. Didn't think it was. That poem I wrote shortly after a bunch of students at Drury made this t-shirt for me. I promised them I'd perform in it at every chance I got. It says an army of poets, and it's a phoenix. It was one of the most emotional days of my entire writing, reading, high school. I was out of high school, but in high school, one of the most emotional days of my life. And they're a phenomenal group of kids. Miss Karen's, Mrs. Cairns is an amazing English teacher. They all put it together, and I have stood true to my word. I wear this every time it's important to me to perform. And this shirt I've been wearing in performance since I was 16. So to make myself more comfortable and build a persona, I can wear the things that make me comfortable. And I'm not sure how much talking I should do versus reading, but I find it difficult because a lot of the poetry we do isn't always appropriate. The subject matter or the word choice we use is what we feel. And if you try to change that, then you change the art itself and it becomes something else. It becomes an essay instead of your artwork. Not that there's anything wrong with essays. Essays are phenomenal. So I'm trying to... This poem I wrote on July 4th, 5 years ago, and it is one of my favorites. In the beginning there was silence. For every beginning there is, no matter how long or short. In that silence was a bearded math and a sensual speech, kissing. Lost in new cities, holding hands under a muse moon. Ancient and evolving habitats, graffiti tagged on the wall's other side, with a bunch of hooded bites expressing their own meaning of being alive. And like with all good nostalgia, or rather inspiration, I was startled back to reality, but this jolt really hit me. I was alone on the 4th of July. Man, I wanted to cry. My family was barely a stone's throw away, and I was too busy, alive in a grave, fading away. Why would we ever sever when we create? And those who vow to never begin truly understand hate. But what is for us limbo runners' fate? Duck in the bar instead of grabbing that hollowed axe daily and saying, I'm not crazy for believing in me. I'm sure I'm strong enough to carry on over broken promises and apologies. But look at me, I'm still sitting up the street and I'm probably too late. Then I'm back. I grab my next flawless ruby. The two, my brother and me, watch the spectacle that has been traditionalized into the 4th of July. And the best poem I've ever conceived was left in the space and silence in between sounds and colors. My brother and me. By the way, anyone who wants to make a grammar case, structure be damned when it comes to divinity. And I took just a little piece with which I wish to leave this conversation with. Sticking to your guns has nothing to do with firing them. It's the caliber of the weapon and where we choose to aim it. It's all about correlation in everything we see. Like a fireworks show missing its finale. My pledge, my truth, my trudge, my oath. I will always love and protect my home first, but then convince everybody's beauty to occur and be claimed in gunpowder and brilliant dye. Streamers' eyes pinned on the sky. Split the clouds till lovers reside on each mountainside. And a finale finally able to shine with all shapes and vibrations encircling the neighborhood like the most, as clean as a 6-year-old kid at church on Sunday. I'm a missionary of others' works. I praise your gospel, but I write the hymns that show up in the space and silence before anything begins with my imaginary static. Sorry, I should have worked on altering the end of that poem, but at least I didn't say it. I am proud and privileged to have been in most of the high schools and colleges and some of the elementary schools in the area. When I started doing this, most people, 90% of the people or better, when I asked them what spoken word or slam was, they would not raise their hand. So either they didn't have a solid idea or any idea. Now I feel like over half, every time I ask, know what it is. It's a solid form of expression with no rules. There's no meter. There's no cadence to follow. There's no rhyme scheme you have to stick to. It's simply about expressing yourself. And how could you possibly get closer to the heart without an instrument than no rules, like life, like the way we feel, and expressing yourself on stage in a place where you don't have to be judged. I've never been to an open mic spoken word event where someone was judged. And if they were, that person that judged them was thrown out. It's a beautiful collaboration of soul. It's a beautiful place where humanity comes together to support each other in however we may feel and opinions we may have. So to that end, I'm sure I have a poem. This one is called Wordsmiths Need No Chainmail. I'm starting to love writing the same things over and over. Perhaps I'll have the collapse of the metaphors fall around a 4-leaf clover. I was asked today to write something that might make some change, or even change the world. And every day, I say that same steak in different chips where the colors never existed in the first place. Human race is at a dead damn sprint, and my face bears at least 6 bloodlines. Sometime we've got to accept We're all here with each other, yet the ones most worth our breath are the ones who would never hear it. That's why I like to consider myself a mean spirit, because I can take it to truth for most of you, but those who need a little sugar-coated treat or trick to get out of your seat, I can blend you to. Abduct a ticked-off punk's butt gutter mouth with a Gilgamesh twist. I'm an entity, not a human. The truth is this, that poetry is the shape that outside the box brings, and we're all just searching anyway. Why the hell wouldn't we all sing like it's 1 p.m. just out of bed all alone in the shower, kid? If we did that, we wouldn't have to ask why the caged bird sings. We will have dismantled its cage. Keys aren't always playing, stories aren't always straight. Some doors, damn it, we gotta make. Sometimes it's as simple as a swing set in the yard. Sometimes it's a ripple to gain the purer heart. Sometimes you gotta be direct. I did not read this poem for your respect. I did because I found a 4-leaf clover today, pinned to my brother's leg and running away. I saw the future and accepted the past like we all must to see through the dust. Sometimes it's as simple as one person pushing to the front with a chain of hands as far back as trust can extend, and charging that march up around the bend into uncharted wilds and poetry wilds to psychologically leave a crowd sitting with a smile and never tell them how we did it. The best moments in life are simply worth giving a chance at or a try for. So you can build your framework in elementary shapes and clay words, finger paint, maybe nowadays Star Wars, imagination with dedication and the will to only exceed others for the gain of belief in the strength of our dreams to achieve, and never just for ourselves. The world's in shambles. Poets, let's lead away from hell. Philosophers are just poets without rhythm. So remember a half-sibling along the way that made some change, but don't idolize what other people write. Fortune would see we all have the right to speak our mind in whatever way we so choose. So bomb the stage in a fitted hat, a dress, and Gucci shoes. What's the world gonna do? When they can't contain you, they can't tame you, they can't take you, they'll listen to you. Or maybe they'll just hear it, but one step at a time. So the next time you go to a place where poetry could be on your plate, bring a piece and a 4-leaf clover. Am I moving too much? Fair enough. Am I too loud? Nope, good. I just saw myself jump. How much time? 10 minutes? I wrote this poem. This is the first poem I ever wrote to be performed on stage. Like a one-hit wonder in music, you get sick of reading the same thing over and over. It's called Seamless Roses and Lost Words. And I wrote it as part a memorial to a friend and part a first attempt at inspiring people. I don't like to believe that I do that well, but people have told me I do. I'm really not saying that, just, I like to think of myself as humble and foolish. So maybe I do, maybe I don't, but it made one of the toughest teachers in school cry. So I know it has some weight and power to it. I held her hand. The night was fading to autumn's mist, like a dragon's spine descending down the tree line and diffusing on the pond. There it marveled at us as we smiled at it. Midnight blue and then black, all eventually fades into black, and my last day was no exception. We sat on our bench. What a gorgeous place it was. Not but a year before, we were nomads, two of a kind, on a mission to find our Eden. And we found it. 1.5 miles past the whining willow and weeping ledge, we went there at least twice a week to keep our minds clear for sleep. Insomniacs on a sleeping binge, twins with a tryst syringe injecting love, feeling when our will would rather just throw the towel in. It was the most gorgeous night that my heart can recall. Lavender and jasmine sat on a swing, swaying and alternating in the wind, a surreal sense of serene, placid, and all its tranquil properties. See, because I can remember that last kiss, though I can no longer taste it. She always had a way about her of making me crave it, like rain attacking skin in a cool, lustrous lost haven. We made Aphrodite dream of envy. a motion picture elation, and it was just like a movie that often plays back to me, though I really wish it wouldn't. On the car ride home again, I got to hold her hand. A subtle peck on my neck shivered me into mush. I was just too dizzy to see that drunken truck swerve to a blur on the wet concrete. I had a seatbelt and she had no seat because she was leaning on me. I was supposed to be that pillar for her to lean on. Reading this now makes it so hard to breathe. 12 days in a hospital to awake. I watched her lowered into the ground. I buried my soul with her. I'm no longer whole without her. God, hear me. It wasn't just show her love and treat her right, or else you and I would have to see eye to eye, because I would test the Almighty to make things right. I'm a man apart, broken, shattered, obliterated. I once held her hand, and now all I have is my own. I was lost in my life and found meaning in this writing. I only told you that story to say this: raise your hands in a crescent fist, bent but not conforming to this is it. We are the pioneers of poetry. We are the mystic warriors bearing strength in our words. We are the emotions of everyone afraid to show theirs. So let it be heard. You have the right to remain in a riot. To hell with being quiet. We have all lost something that we truly love. Let these words consume you and shake your soul, because it's a cold, confusing world out there, and we're sheltered in here. We're safe in here. We're family, we're friends, and we're allies. In here, there's no running, there's no hatred, just pure appreciation, and this is all that you will ever know of me. The fighting boiled down into my writing, but here we are, nonetheless, understanding, comprehending, condescending to no one, man, woman, child, or otherwise. So retrace these cinder block footsteps that your mind has already beaten out for you. Can you hear the beating? It falls into unity, and it's a sound of marching, so march. We are all equals, and should you raise your voices and join me, we'll all have each other's backs. There's no leaders, and there's no one that gets left behind in this progressively more perfect world, walking in stride, side by side, right eye on the other hand, seeing puppetless signs, feel the fire and pacifist infantry, regiments cohesive to the path of liberty, disabuse the concepts you wouldn't take down so willingly, amidst all my own insecurities. It's collective fear that's been killing me, collected from everybody's individual beauties. So unfetter these brain guards, writer's blocks, gender slanders, race barriers, bigots, hollow sticks, and plastic stones. They have no teeth, so bite them back by opening your mouth and reading your gorgeous poetry. So write and read to me, hand over hand, peace over war, love over hate, words over might. We can begin this revolution of poetry tonight. Sorry, I got emotional. I haven't read that poem in probably a couple of years, and it always reminds me why I do this. So when you're young, you don't have that kind of that acceptance in voice, and it was something I searched for and needed. Instead of speaking, I was counseling. I think a lot of kids can understand that when you need to say something and express yourself, you end up listening to those who you think need to be heard more. It's something that we do, I think, innately as humans. And, well, reading this poetry at places like the Parlor, which is closing tonight, and MCLA, which I had a great time there, at Sharky's, and with the events going on, we all came together to express opinions together. And the only way to start change is to accept that something needs to change, and everyone knows it. I think I got time for one more, and I'd like to read this one for a good friend of mine named Darren. It's called Why, and I've seen hundreds of songs and poems titled this, and it's almost a little bit an irony that I titled it that way. I've asked why a million times, and all the while hidden the innocence of my child was a remedy. I've been given another shot, and I'd be damned if I didn't drink it down with a smile. It's love infused with dedication. It's words from her revelations. It's all that you're capable of when you can deliver. And untouchables, first shiver. His fault lines at your feet with no fear to fall. It's being touched so deep that the shy kid that no one liked now has the strength to stand in front of you and speak. That's the #1 fear in America, if I recall. Insanity, disease, cancer, dying. Talking in front of this camera rises above them all. And I soak up every leper's tale, every fool's dream. Every single person that has a conversation with me is now subject to show up in my poetry. So I got every man, woman, and child reading with me. Do away with reality TV. You haven't got to be from a ghetto to realize that a pacifist man shooting off a clip just to hold a bloody brother as he inevitably slipped is now not a man that you or I can mess with. No actor could try and sympathize with the fire and desperation in that young man's eyes as the story unfolded and shattered an already broken sky. But why then does our creativity die in everyday life when we all hold them same things that bring true passionate artists out and together to read? It's a place to embrace the building blocks of our humanity, and skill levels are only acknowledged higher, not to a better degree. So please stop me if I'm wrong, because I become at least one caged bird's last song. A quick moment that certainly shook my foundation was 19 years back. A beautiful child born, confined to a chair and holding my hand, he said, regardless of the time that we had spent, I was still one of his favorite and best friends. And now because of deteriorating bone disease, that boy has 1 to 2 years left to live. But if your goosebumps aren't rising, picture this kid writhing and fighting and gripping the dirt. He wasn't supposed to make it to school, not past 2, and for what it's worth, the other day I shook the hand of a full-grown man wheeling his way through college with a smirk. That's a true story that deserves all the glory bestowed in the bones that boy had to carry because he couldn't place his skeletons in his closet at night. These moments are so important to me. They're my own emotional history, and for some stupid reason I've had a chance to inspire. So every day I remind myself to lie back down on the pyre. There's fire flying from my fingertips, and now somehow I feel normalish. See, because I plan to be with people I love and people who love me. And tonight I'll pray that isn't another one-night philosophy. Pray that somehow through my tortured sounds I can set just one more person's heart at ease, because in this life it's not always rusty nail hammocks and palm trees, brilliant and tortured or stupid and happy. We dance in the gray, and we never ever have to pray for rain, but when we do pray, it's no God, no ultimate power you could find in history. We send our thoughts to be caught in the emotion stream, in this angelic rapture that could capture our inner beast. My brains that once manipulated fury now bend in the winds of peace, and it all comes flowing out in our poetry. So I'm calling all poets to rise from their seats. And don't let me catch one of you not rising with me. I can't start this movement until you all see that tomorrow will never ever be handed to you. So why not step up here first and set your soul free? And remember, little girl, because you're still sitting, you'll be the next one to show up in my poetry.
Want to keep going? I mean,
I got
Jacob, I mean, Nathan, who just left, wanted to make sure that you heard that he was really inspired.
Thank you very much, Nathan.
I know that so much of when we do stuff like this, it's very hard to get the feedback of what we're really bringing forth, but it's deep, it's heavy, it's moving, and I'm a big believer that if it's moving that way, it needs to be happening. So if you have at least 10, 15 more minutes,
I could do another poem or two, and
I'd love it.
Taking the risk of putting me up here.
Oh, I love it. And this is a man who is a well-known poet, artist.
He was phenomenal.
Okay, so, you know, you've heard it, so keep going.
Okay. Am I rambling on? Should I not be talking as much?
No, you go random.
Yes, ma'am. Manners are really important and lost in today's society. Truly, that's true. I thought it was funny. No one laughed. I get it. You know what? I had somebody ask me to read a poem for them called "I Hate Being Straight." And it was not a political move or charged by anything else than the stigma in high school that comes along with that. And I was fed up with it, and I had a very loud voice, and I grew up really early, so I didn't get messed with a lot. And well, since I can't read the other one I wrote for a very good friend of mine, dear friend of mine, I'm gonna read this one. It's called "I Hate Being Straight." And I wrote it when I was 16. I hate being straight. I bet you never thought you'd hear that, but I do. And I know what you're probably thinking, because I probably thought that same thing too when I read this out loud to myself and a million ideas collided inside of my brain, but I'm confident enough, right now anyway, to take a second to try to explain. I hate being stereotyped. I guess everyone does, but a warmonger, cold-hearted brute barely capable of love is not a title that I'm proud of. Black-labeled and blackmailed by friends who fit the mold, I search to fight the current, but a tightened tidal wave breaking against my face is an impossible endeavor. I've never gave up, but every day I'm forced to surrender, succumb to the size of a mainstream stealing my eyes. And think about that. Your eyes are the windows to a scarlet heart and velvet soul with turquoise letters covering all them holes that have been burned there from unfair past events. But I'm forced to forfeit this gift of an aqua rift to become a carpenter's son of a, I gotta fit. And media mixed with genetics makes me strive for straightness. Not a place I mind being that much, mind you, but the views that are imbued are mind-beating blinded. Believe these blackened eyes are still seeing, but battered back to a raspberry cap, conforming to all them intricate little bumps that would fill my head with second-seated thoughts. Sorry if I'm losing you a little. Being stoic for so long has ripped up creative connective tissues that would have otherwise been beautiful to the non-bigot's critique, so I'm sort of overflowing with these linguistics whose oppression has dragged me into the deepest corners of my own insanity. I've been driven inimical by the critics. The ones that don't see my work, they don't judge me. If they don't know me, then they can't touch me and they won't love me because they're guys and I'm a guy, so it's out of the question to fall in love with my mind, so I won't let them lay their filthy fingers on mine. But they're brain-whisking, whitewashing wishes and words while wonderful wills into piles of bricks. And I've already begun to fall for their tenacious tricks, but I'm so glad to live now. Now where all types of people are accepted, but are they truly embraced? Not even I can come face to face with how sensitive I am inside. How could I expect your acceptance when not even I can coincide inside myself? But under this umbrella, this label freeing me, I now sit impatient in the back of some dreams, pushed into this range fence of animosity. I'm silent, as a brave but stern, as a tree. Creativity ripped up piece by piece, placed in a bottle, and tossed to sea. My heart says stay, but my heart's on leave. AWOL bearing my emotions on my knees, knelt down before the heathen priest. Here's a card, here's a key, here's a knife, there's a tree. Carve another label, please. Show me that this me to be will fit what everyone expects of me. I hate being straight. There's just no two ways to it. I know what you're probably thinking. He's gay, so go ahead and say it, because I'm about to cry. I can cope with and learn to live in being shy, but fear is burnt through my firefighting, fending, and my phoenix rise. Say what you gotta say. I'm unafraid, but when you say it, look me in my still, true eyes. And, yeah, even mentioning that title to some of my friends got a very odd response to them. And I've never seen people in that regard. They're either good to me or bad to me. So if you're bad to me, it doesn't matter who you are in any of those ists, race and gender, association, and it doesn't matter. If you're a good person, you're a good person. If you're a bad person, we all do good and bad things, but I'm not sure I got a great poem. Oh. I don't want to get kicked out. All right, I'll take a chance. And you guys
keep it PG, please.
Okay, then I won't take a chance. Oddly enough, that might be all. No, I got one more. Can I do one more? You can kick me out. That's cool.
Do one more.
So this is probably one of my most clever poems. I worked really hard on it. No one ever understands it, and that's fine. But a lot of work went into making sure it was on point. And a lot of people have heard the quote, "The truth shall set you free." Yes? Well, that's only half the quote. So when I heard it, I wrote this piece. The truth shall set you free, but first it's going to make you miserable. Syllable by syllable, the cymbal lightly tap, that cymbal's close intact. Let humility raise a toast to a night of contentment, laced with bitter smoke. I mask the cask of ivory bone holding my essence. A graceful tongue handed to a fool. The weight of ambrosia folded under compassion, I couldn't. But what I saw was a redefined awe full. God, I was all full. Took in the desire that I could see so that I could barely breathe. Held, exhilarated, rejuvenated. That first note on the playground, scared to death, hiding behind the slide, telling someone you like them for the very first time, but you were just too shy, feeling, man, I wanted to erase it and tuck her under my arm, but myself got the best of me. I can't love her that way unless it's destiny. The fortunes of time would find that the tide doesn't sweep to any beat but its own, and sometimes the closest you can get to someone is in a poem. So fill it with overused adjectives, beautiful cliches, and all that your heart possessed. Don't allow yourself to not get undressed. I was swept off my feet, thinking of all the ways I could kiss her with all the heat of a phoenix laid to rest, radiating from the floorboards that were still nailed to my chest. Let the passion out just one more time. Show this girl fireworks meets butterflies, meets a solid hue retained by love-possessed eyes, the kind that breaks every rule, every one, every touch, sending shivers and shards from an hourglass of pent-up ecstasy, passed between two deities wrapped in ardor effortlessly, and man, that would have been sweet. The truth rarely is, and as for destiny, our experience on this earth is what we touch, where we taste, when we see, who we hear, and how we kept scent, but it's also that never-ending quest to obtain your piece of why. So figure it out as you go. Have some fun along the way. Leave peace in your wake. Cherish, but don't try to remember every step you take. There's far too much there along the way. And when tears grace a frown held tight, smile for a second. It means you're still alive, recovered, and never deny the creative side. It may just shift the heavens enough to obtain things made from dreams. Thank you.
Where we are doing a musical, and now we are doing a literary hour. And I am Christiane Ryan, and I'm your host. And our next guest performer, I was going to say is a repeat offender, but a repeat performer, yes, at Nathan Smith, who has been with me on 2 TV shows. One TV show,
Hearsay to Heresy, which is a play with Henry David Thoreau in it. And the other one was an interview and an exhibit of my artwork at the Milne Library as a permanent exhibit that changes every 6 months or so.
Which is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I was actually interviewing, well, I wasn't interviewing, I was working out some logistics with my play with his wife, who was the director of my show for a while, and I kept looking at your artwork saying, this is really amazing, and this is, and she looks at me and she says, that's my Nathan. And I said, you're Nathan? And she said, yes, that's my Nathan that does that artwork. And I was like, I have to have a TV show with him.
I appreciated it so.
Yeah, but I want to get back to your play,
yes,
which we filmed, which was an incredible experience down at the Norman Rockwell
yes,
Museum.
That was a couple years ago, but it went
and
very
it was
well.
an amazing end of April.
Very cold.
Outdoor performance.
Very cold.
Which I have to tell you, it was a beautiful day. It was gorgeous, and luckily your actor, who was
Andrew Jaffe, was a one-man show.
And he played 3 roles.
3 characters.
Three
yes.
characters.
But now it's been changed, and Andrew is one of 2 characters, and Mary is the other,
God
and Rose
bless
is
her.
the director.
God bless him.
So it's a 2-person show now. It's very good.
Wow.
Come along
Yeah,
very
it
nice.
evolves. You know, as a
Yes,
writer,
as
we
you would know.
we learn how to help things evolve. And I know that so much of your work, besides your beautiful artwork, which I found extraordinary, and I would encourage any of you to go down to the Milne Library in Williamstown, and he's in the back room. It's a permanent exhibit, just to experience, because a lot of the artwork has story. I mean,
Yes.
it's a story that is evolving, and that's what I love the most through the show, was that you were actually able to walk through the story
Yes.
through
However,
the artwork.
that's been revamped now, and it's totally different. And there's a mural in progress right now, and there's maybe about 12 or so illustrations from other places.
Wow.
So
Well,
it's-
then
it's
I've got to
brand
get
new,
over
yeah.
there. Yeah,
You'll
yeah.
like it.
So today, you're going to share with us, you're also a poet. And I have to say that when you gave me your book, I had to really put myself in a position where I had to have no distractions.
Yes, it's good to enter into it.
Yeah, and I was able to really have to, it's something that is not light,
No.
not light at all, very in-depth poetry. I was very intrigued by it because I was never entertained the idea of, you know, the poetry world, but, you know, it opened up doors and it really got me thinking.
I'm glad to hear that. Poetry is esoteric in some ways. These are sonnets.
which I
So,
thought was really interesting, too.
yeah, an art form that's been around possibly maybe 800 years. And
Wow. Yes, I remember reading the history in there. You did the historical about how long it's been around. I was very, intrigued by that.
and so I hope to read some of the sonnets as I'm here today.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule between trying to work and trying to write and trying to keep the momentum going,
Takes a
right?
lot of effort.
Okay, so we're going to, hopefully this mic is
I'm
on.
good. Don't need to speak any louder than this.
Okay.
I'm okay.
So,
Thank you very much.
let it rip.
We'll be meeting. I want to read a few things from different manuscripts because one is poetry and one is very, very short stories. Then there are lyrics and the sonnets here, and then some shorts as well. And if I can get to it, some fables. I'll read a bit from each. This is from a poetry manuscript called the Juniper Manuscript. And the first poem is called Days. Days. How many days like these does it take to make us wise? How many days must the impresario sun again appear, inspiring the goldenrod to make yellow of the hills, and with the whimsical wit of wind, set leaves stampeding over a flailing meadow, asserting again and once again that change is merely something becoming more of what it is, as autumn's intent is to be winter-wise. Days like these teased the mind of childhood, with everywhere the thick and slender stems long leaning and rife with ripeness. Nothing of time between then and now. As now and then the migrant birds rise up and liquefy themselves into a single moving thought. Who will I become April, when the ice becomes cat agile down slope and stone, and the gel of frogs coagulates the busyness of streams, and the country blooms like sex, all stout and flower fragile, coaxing me to come to be as unorthodox as snow in August weather? What will be my rights as the subterranean rooms admit the quickening time, as the egg becomes the feather? Who was it told the birds with their warbling words it was time to come back? Who cajoled the swords of grass to gently prick their heads above again, and the iffy snow to turn into an intemperate rain, and upwards drive the rain? What makes the yellow stem rush with a flush of red, and the tulips to be born out of the uterine mud? How does the salamander remember now it's April, and the unpuckering bud inhabiting the timber remember to resume the green sequel to the great going under? Who told a brilliance to swarm along the forsythia's arm, and the winter-weary sun it was time to show some pluck, that the feverish chill was done, and being of one mind makes everything aligned like a string of good luck. This is from a manuscript called Short Shorts. It's a story. At a distance you couldn't tell, but if ever chanced upon, you had to be alert to the subtle but peculiar configuration of his features, But the world becomes ambiguous at gloaming time anyway. Once, before I knew, I saw him declining a grassy hillside, a silhouette against the peach sky with a daffodil yellow halo along its slanted horizon. About a quarter hour later, when evening had darkened us to an indistinction, we passed each other on the path. The quiet hello he uttered betrayed an accent, but I couldn't quite place it. Later, talking to a townsman, it was told to me that this same man I had seen against the bonfire of the sky did also, one evening, pass him by. The stranger greeted him with a gracious Guten Abend, though there was no way the stranger could have known my townsman was of German extraction. My newly made friend likewise acknowledged an unfamiliar accent in the salutation. Still later, I learned, as I was becoming a more accustomed face about the inns and coffee shops, that this man had been seen by many, and though always civil, never gave the slightest notion he was wont for conversation. The lure about him was that one dare not look down, and thereby see his shoes, if there were any to be seen. And no one knew, for no one dared look down. Why, you may ask? The story goes that once, so long ago, one windy winter's night, a woman in an urgent errand crossed the stranger's path. And had the moon been clouded over or diminished, she would not have seen, though for an instant only, his paw prints before they vanished in a blast of snow. Milo Savant. Milo Savant, came the announcement from the figure standing in the doorway, the sky behind him ripe as a tomato. Oddly, he couldn't be heard above the conglomeration of conversations, yet all heads swiveled in his direction. The honky-tonk stopped. The place was packed. Gray and ashy white curlicues of smoke meandered upwards, the kerosene lamps yellowing their edges, creating a sepia-like cast to the world he had just entered. A patina of wear and tear had overtaken his wardrobe, the coat a few stitches away from unacceptable, the frayed cravat pierced by a pin of no consequence, the cuffs yellowed in the too tight trousers, the fashionless battered shoes, top hat reduced to a dullness, and the random patches told his story. This was not his concern. Through a galaxy of various sized tables, Milo Savant navigated to the bar across the floorboards, whining with his weight. It didn't matter. Oh, it might have mattered once, a long time ago, but now his eyes raced across the monstrous mirror behind the bar, camera-like capturing the mood of the room. He then turned around to face them and began. Wild with waiting. Sorry, the child who doesn't climb trees. Perhaps she's just too small. The lowest bended arm is just not low enough. Perhaps a parent with an eye out for catastrophe or knowing cautioned her not to try. Either way, her solar plexus was a radiating ache. But by and by she'll grow, or sooner, by some magic wrinkle in reality. She has no name for it, but this is what she feels. She will will herself up in the trees where they will hug her close to them. As long as she remembers they have reached for her, choose what season she may. the green engagement or the one as stark as picked bones. They motion to her. When the wind's a tempest, tearing twigs and foliage, she hears them, a cacophony, calling. It is an urgency she's hearing. Come, grow up as soon as possible. We are wild with waiting. Hurry. Winter, by the closed window, watching, she hears them in her inner ear, teasing her with images of spring flowering along their arms, and birds whistling with her among them. This is from a book of lyrics. It's called Metaphoric Time, Lyrics Looking for a Tune. And this is called From a Branch. The vehicles were whizzing by. The brainy clouds were on the fly. And all around, wind shred the sky. As dark time made its swift advance, two crows were watching from a branch. The trees had fallen months ago, the greening things withdrawn below, while feet went slogging through deep snow. And was it fate, or faith, or chance, with two crows watching from a branch? The way the light was lightly spread to make the mountains gray like lead could make a pilgrim turn her head, to steal a surreptitious glance of two crows watching from a branch. Perhaps it's always been this way. The chill and dimming of the day, the earth, a molten ball of clay, and sunset striking like a lance with two crows watching from a branch.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Those are two extremely talented literary performers in this community that I hope we get to hear a little bit more from their artwork. And you have been watching Artist in the Berkshires, and I am your host, Krista Jan Ryan, with Artist in the Berkshires, where I bring to you the artist whose vision has made an impact in the art world. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you next time. God bless.